welcome to everyone. Thank you for coming to attend this event about peer review. The Faculty of Arts and Humanities is participating in this global event of the Peer Review Week, which is held, I believe, globally all over the world, and we will participate with this seminar. Peer review is an integral part of the career of our career or the career of any researcher. And this has not been really addressed. Usually we discuss research, but peer review was not really addressed or developed as a skill, although it is a very important skill and it's very important for our careers, both as authors want to publish papers and as peer reviewers as well. So the Faculty of Arts and Humanities in the British University is taking part in this event, and today's seminar is about transparency in peer review and high impact research. It will touch upon a number of areas important for peer review and for high quality research. I would like to welcome and invite Professor Yahya Bahieddin, the Vice President for Research at the BUE, to come and start this seminar, and Professor Iman al-Mahallawi will also tell us about her experience and expectation as a peer reviewer. I will also participate. I'll touch upon peer review, how to become a peer reviewer, the components of an effective peer review, types of peer review and how it varies from one journal to the other, and the importance of transparency in the process of peer review. So welcome again, and Professor Yahya.
And I think he wrote in the guest book some nice words about BUE and the importance of having the students earning dual degree and how this is good for the economy and globalization of the students finding jobs and working with the world community. We are located in Egypt, obviously, and right at the delta here, at this fork, and east of Cairo. Cairo is to the left here, east of Cairo about 50 kilometers, and from Cairo International Airport about 25 kilometers. This is a campus, about 30 acres. It has 15 buildings, state-of-the-art campus, very nice architecture. And we are actually sitting right here. This is the library, and we are somewhere here in this room. So my talk is about high impact research, and what I would like to start with is publish or perish. And you know, the saying has been around. It's to emphasize the importance of publishing. So here's someone who didn't publish in the firing squad. We will not do that here, right? And it is publish or perish, not publish or perish, okay? So, however, we at BUE prefer to publish and flourish. So we'd like people to publish so that life will get better and be happy. And of course, the university will be happy as well. Now, we don't publish anything. Blogs are not publications, so we look for quality publications. And we need to survive the peer review process and make it to the accepted paper over there. We will. Now, we are 12 years old, very young university. That's why we always proud of the achievements here in many arenas, teaching and learning, research, and of course technology transfer. So I prefer this new terminology which has been popping up, like customer-centric. So we are research-centric. That means we live research, we dream research, we do research, So we have a very ambitious research strategy to talk about that, and we actually had an event this morning to launch the new strategy for the next 5 years. This is of course supported by a research environment that's of course enable everyone to achieve the targets of the strategy and looking for impact. So our research mission at BUE is many folds. One of them is essential really to, Egypt has a sustainable development plan for 2030, and unless we contribute to that, we are not really going to claim that we are part of this development. So our research should target that. As long as we know what the problems are, we can contribute to it. But also don't forget about basic research, because basic research is very important as well. Niche areas of research, of course, and we like to see our research have an impact, societal impact on industry and on the economy. Our environment is supportive, has incentives, and rewards excellence in research. So I will go briefly over these aspects here. The key performance indicators as far as research is concerned, and in terms of publications, funding, collaboration, and many other things, research centers, etc. And enterprise in terms of 2 items here, technology transfer and the science park. Now, just to, I think, kick this off, let's see where we are. In 12 years of a university, I can claim that research probably is only 7 years old. Because initially, you want to focus on undergraduate education and establish yourself, which was done probably in the first 5 years, and then research started to pick up. What happened in the past 5 years as far publication, this is an average. BUE has 25% of its publications appearing in the top 10 most cited publications in the world. These are not my numbers. This is coming from Scopus or SciVal. Both are Elsevier services that we've subscribed to. Egypt's average is 10%, 10.3%. So we're higher than that. Also, we are the top private university accredited by, this is the accreditation body in Egypt, Supreme Council of Universities. So that excludes those with special agreements like AUC and the Arab Academy. 12th in all universities in Egypt out of the 45 ones, and 8th in academic reputation. And I think they measure academic reputation by a questionnaire. As far as I know, QS does that. They send questionnaires around to universities and businesses, industry, asking them about BUE. What do you know about BUE? Maybe they have a graduate, they have a colleague, they have collaboration, they say good things about us, maybe 50%, I don't know. Then it reflects on the reputation here. This is of course a result of many excellent facilities in the university. It started as undergraduate probably labs, and then it's been, many of them has been upgraded to research labs, thanks to funding that we get from research grants. Have been adding equipment, and the library is here. Here, that's where we are. Of course, undergraduate programs are essential because out of these come the researchers. A few, of course. We have about 10,000 students currently in 9 faculties, 9 schools. And it started 2005. These 2 were added, the law and the arts and humanities. The host of this workshop started last year. They offer dual degree, except pharmacy and dentistry. It's special in that they cannot offer dual degree, so we get dual degree for our students from a UK university and BUE and the UK universities we are partnering with for validation. And dual degree are London South Bank, Loughborough, and Queen Margaret. Depends on the discipline. Also supported by postgraduate programs in web science and engineering, very advanced subjects here. And also we have an MBA, it's just started less than a year ago. And these 2 categories offer dual degree from London South Bank and BUE. Many research centers have evolved since next year of opening the university. That's rare, you know, when you open a university and next year thinking about research and supporting research center, that's really something to speak about and brag about. In many areas, I started this when I joined the university in 2007, so next year I started this. Professor Iman Halawi here, you will hear from her shortly. She started the Renewable Energy Research Center in 2012. We have one in pharmacy, anyone from pharmacy? Everybody here is arts and humanities? That's great. And preventive maintenance, the idea of this is that you do repairs and maintenance to machinery based on information, educated information, not regular scheduling or guessing or wait until it just fails. So you have sensors and feedback, much like you go to the doctor and find out, you know, if everything is fine or needs to do something or give you a medication or something. All right. This is actually new because this provides distance learning to labs. It's not simulation. You have a physical lab here. This is a piece of machine that runs somehow. Sitting at home, you can log in and actually move that machine and do the experiment and read charts and get data out of it. Professor Hani Ghali has established this and started as what was before Erasmus Plus? It used to be Tempus. It was a Tempus project funded by the European Union. Okay, now we have also a nanotechnology research center that's under construction, and we're working on the equipment right now. That's under Professor Mustafa Said advising, and Magdi Aoub Art Research Center also under development. This is a previous center. You see it in the previous lists, but we have renamed it after Professor Farul Baz for his work in sustainability. He's member of the board. All three, Professor Mustafa Said, here Magdi Aoub, and Farul Baz, are members of the board of trustees of BUE. So these are basically our research focus. BUE, based on the research centers, we have the publications that came out. Very critical, very important areas. Egypt needs them, the world needs them. Energy, water, drugs, drug development, etc. Even agri-food. This is new to us, but we wanted to get to that because there is a program called PRIMA. Anyone knows about PRIMA? PRIMA is partnership something Mediterranean. It's an abbreviation of something. It's a Mediterranean countries would work together in research in many areas. Currently, they're focusing on agriculture and food and related technologies like water, for instance, water management, water desalination, and so on. And Egypt is part of this partnership. Research funding has been coming really good from international sponsors, European Union, British Council, the German DAAD, and also we had one time two, but it was a big project, NSF, the National Science Foundation in the United States. And from Egypt, we also were fortunate to have funds from every funding agency in Egypt. The three are the main ones. This is a booklet, and I think this came your way or didn't. We distributed this to the faculties. It lists many of the projects that have been sponsored or funded, external funding, and also those funded by BUE. And I just put samples here, many in wind energy, water desalination, several actually in wind energy, and also solar energy, and I think the last one here is a building heritage. Okay. There's some samples of the projects. Shows you that our research is done with the industry, and this is to produce these things. Do you know what this is? It's a windmill, right? Right. Windmill is the opposite of a fan. A fan, you plug it in the power, in the electricity socket, it gives you air. The windmill, the air will make it rotate, and the generator would give you electricity. So this was for that. This is a huge one. You can see the dimension of the people here standing, 25 meters, weighs 2 tons. This is now going to move to Za'farana. Za'farana, if you went to Al Sukhna, you'll find this Za'farana wind farm, and it's going to be tested and mounted on one of the wind turbines there. This is another one. This was about a month ago. It's also a windmill, but it's in a different, it rotates on this axis. And we made this for off the grid. That means it's not connected to the shabaka, to the grid, but you can put it in your backyard, for instance, in your farm, in your resort, something like that, to get electricity independent of the electricity company. So this was being installed in Al-Gharda'a, and it's going to be tested and for performance and maybe improved for the commercialization. That was funded by the European Union, and as a matter of fact, and the previous one was funded by STDF. Collaboration, many, and this is not an updated list. Actually, you have to kind of update this every day because every day we add MOUs, but we have many multinational here and in the UK and in the US, and I think we also have now Austria and Finland added here. I need to update that, I apologize. And also in Egypt, with research centers, industry, and many government organizations, for instance, then we move on to technology transfer, and there we have 2 main projects we are working on. This started already under funding from the Academy for Scientific Research. It's a grant to establish Technology Innovation Commercialization Office, and I will say briefly what this is. And this is a science park. This is being developed under construction currently. We hope in a few months it will open even partially. The idea is you want people with innovations to start to commercialize their ideas. So they start here, and that's where the cycle comes. They need training. They have an idea. They don't know what else to do. So they need training to do business plan and some research skills and how to do a prototype that looks nice, that looks competitive, commercial, as price-wise, etc. When this succeeds, see, there's a lot of things to do here: mentoring, training, etc. The few or many who succeed will go to the science park, give them a place, give them support, give them money, maybe. And this is the science park that BUE is building in collaboration with China. Tsinghua University started what we are trying to start now in Science Park over 20 years ago. And they had a small room, maybe, and I saw that one, it was a very old building. They say, we're proud that we started here. Now they have TUS Park. TUS here is from Tsinghua University. S for science, TUS Park. This is one of the buildings. They have 26 buildings now. 2 of these buildings are towers of about 16 floors. So we're signing the agreement here. So what happens is that people with ideas, they get a space here, but they don't sit, don't know what to do. So they have all the supports you can think of. They have people who marketing, they have people legal, they have funding people from banks, investors around them to grab that idea and make it successful. And then when they are ready to launch a company, they give them a small office. They get bigger, a bigger office. They get too big for the place, they go and open their own company. And the COO, the Chief Operating Officer of Thus Park, he visited us here. That's him, Herbert Chen. He said currently 30% of China GDP comes from companies which started as companies in incubators from the science park. They don't have only the science park, they have about 1,000 science parks over China, you know. So this companies started, got bigger, became bigger corporates, and they contribute 30% of the GDP. That's a huge number from China, of course. You know, they have a huge budget. So the science park would provide what's referred to as an ecosystem. You know, I've been always thinking, why do we have jewelers, for instance, opening in the same area? Why do we have the furniture people are opening in, what do you call that area? Antalata, Darb al-Barabra or something. Why is that? Why do they always open next to each other while they compete? It's the ecosystem, because the services they need is similar. And they even work even better. If you go to one of them and you don't find what you need, they will bring it to you from the next shop. All right, so they help each other. That's the ecosystem. So if you have an idea sitting here, you have all these things around you to make you successful. The venture capital, the money that you need for a company. And you find many people. Have you seen Haram yesterday, newspaper? There was a half a page from, what do you call it? The Ministry of Investing or something. And they have a bus called, I think, Shirkiti or something, my company. And what they have, they tell you, we're going to go to this neighborhood with this bus or many buses. If you have an idea, you'll talk to us. If we are convinced, we will support you and we will provide you with fund, and we'll get 8% of your revenue. It's not much, but very attractive. You have no money, you just have your head, you know, you have an idea in your head. And so that's how this would work, and hopefully that will open. We were targeting December, so I don't know. We'll see. It's located. Here's BUE here. Here's going to Cairo, going to Suez, and the science park is in this area. We don't have the whole buildings here. We have just a couple, and then it will expand. But this is where the science park will be. Not very far. Okay, so let me, I think, close with the what's in here for researchers, really, to deliver what we've been talking about. The support, the incentives, and the rewards. In terms of support, staff at BUE have a research time to do research, not only teaching. They will give them time to do research weekly, 1 day a week. They can take on off in the summer to do research outside Egypt for 3 months. They have, of course, postdoc opportunities to go also for a postdoc if they receive their PhD from Egypt. They can study abroad. That's for teaching assistants and those who are seeking master's or PhD. They can study abroad and come back to BUE. And we offer postgraduate scholarships. That's for our own master programs. They get actually 50% discount in our programs. BUE covers the cost of publication. There is always a cost of publication to appear in journals. Now you pay some fee. BUE would cover that, and this is probably new to you, or have seen it probably this morning. We now have tenured appointments. If you are a professor, you can get tenured, provided, of course, you have a track record that will qualify you for that. Hopefully we'll start with associate professors later on, but currently for professors. BUE would cover travel to conferences and would provide seed fund, what we call as YER, the Young Investigator Research Fund, And the last one is also new, the indirect cost payback incentive. If you have a research grant, and there is always an indirect cost, we know it as overhead, right? And that overhead, you're gonna get back part of it, 5%. And that part is not, to have fun with it, but to spend it on research at your own leisure. You say, I want to go to additional conference or hire a research assistant. But we wanted to give the PI some control over part of the money that he successfully brought to the university. We have awards, research awards, and we've done this 2 years in a row, and the third one is coming soon. That gives cash prizes and certificates. We insist on publications appearing in Scopus and Thomson Writers because of the ranking agencies, QS times higher, only look at those. They don't look at any publication somewhere else. This is available for teaching assistants and faculty staff, and also this is new. We're going to provide a cash reward per publication appearing here, of course. So Jamat Cairo University already puts a lot of money for publication rewards, so we're going to start somewhere. Now, if you want more information, you're welcome to look at the BUE website. If you hit research here, you're going to see this with many information. If you scroll down, you will find a lot of information about the services we offer, research centers, events, publications, etc. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Yahya, for a very informative, insightful, transparent talk. And no wonder the BUE is really developing and flourishing and booming in its ranking for publication and research. Thank you very much for the efforts done for a private university. This is really great for an achievement. I will just give a brief introduction about peer review, the types of peer review, the cycle, and components of an effective peer review, how to become a peer reviewer, and the issue of transparency in peer review. Peer review, as you all know, is the very important process of having an expert specialized in the field to evaluate a paper submitted for publication. This has been going on since the Greeks, and the first journal that formalized peer review was the Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society. This was back in 1660, which is over 300 years ago. Now, of course, peer review is important because so far it is the only widely accepted method for research validation. And it creates the research society, validates it, this community, and as we all know, it is the central role in scholarly publishing. So far this has been the case, and it was interesting to see how this was started as a formal process over 300 years ago. There were mainly three types of peer review. The single blind peer review, where the author is known to the reviewer. The double blind review, which is the most common one, is that both reviewer and author are anonymous. The open review is that both parties are known. So again, this is rare in this area, but basically it is the double blind review which is the most common so far. Of course, it varies from journal to the other, and what's important or at stake here is that this should be clearly transparent and published, which type of review the journal actually is pursuing. The peer review cycle this is the whole cycle, how it goes once you submit your paper for publication. It's the editor who has the initial evaluation regarding the very initial evaluation, the relevance of the topic, the length, the quality, of course, of the language. At this stage, he or she can either reject or accept the paper. And then, if accepted, it goes through the process of the reviewer, first reviewer, second reviewer. Then, if accepted with some amendments, they could go back to the first reviewer or the second reviewer, or two new reviewers would make sure that the paper is ready for publication, where the final stage where the author receives the acceptance for publication, and this is done through this process. So far for the author, this is done in closed rooms or behind the scene, and we are not aware of this process except when you receive a mail saying that you have been accepted or rejected. I'm sure many of you here have gone through the process, either on the side of the author or, of course, on the side of the peer reviewer. Now, the effective peer review process goes through the very important to respond promptly when you are requested to to review a paper. It's quite important. It takes time. It is time consuming. So you need to be very careful that you really can have the time, and that, of course, you are in the specialized field. Integrity is important. If there are issues of conflict of interests, of course, you have to very clearly apologize or clarify this. Confidentiality, of course, is very important in integrity. When you read the paper, these are the key questions that a peer reviewer should take into consideration with the quality of the valuable contribution of the paper, originality, and of course it should be evidence-based, whether in the fields, in our fields of arts and humanities or in science fields. Now, the feedback from the peer reviewer, it's very important to be constructive, because the peer reviewer should be like a mentor. If it is a paper of a good quality and with some amendments, the feedback should be constructive, and to give credit to important areas, because also this will be very important for the editor and for the publication. Well, with acceptance, this was one of the reports given back to one of the colleagues, and we thought we'd share it as like best practice in the components of an effective review. Of course, the final decision is very clear, and the evaluation results with a score covering important components exactly as we do with the paper, but a criteria to be published clearly by a journal. Again, I do believe that this transparency is clear in all journals. The rigorous quality of the journal could be clear from the quality of papers published, but what has been going on behind the scenes is not usually very clear. Lately, we're having, not only abroad, if you're publishing abroad, but even by Cairo University, we're having, and other universities, we're having the components of the peer review covering the evaluation scores of the organization, the evidence, the methodology, and the contribution. Again, you can see points of strength, suggestions for the author, and points of strength highlighted there to help for further publication. Again, putting the standard quite clear, and then what next? What should the author do next to finalize the publication? We just wanted to share the components, because once you will be peer reviewers, and to see how this should be done in a transparent way. How to become a peer reviewer? Quality of paper you are publishing, then you can be contacted by the editor of the journal asking you to peer review papers, networking, working with a mentor who is a reviewer. All these open up this community of research and peer review, which is what is actually part and parcel and integral part of our careers as academics. Here we're sharing one of the journals for starting to be a peer reviewer. Big question, why become a peer reviewer? Of course, it's a challenge. It's not an easy task at all. And editors find it very difficult to identify and retain peer reviewers or good peer reviewers. However, it's an academic duty. It's part of your development as a researcher and your standing in the research community. It enhances the research writing skills of you as a reviewer, as well as your participation to mentor others in this area. It's a commitment, and of course, it's free. So again, this would be another challenge because it is time consuming. However, I mean, it's part of publish or perish again. It is the integral part of scholarly publishing. The issue of transparency. It's not only a matter of the author and the anonymity of the author and the peer reviewer, but what's very important is that the process itself, what should be actually transparent and why should it be? What is the importance of transparency? What do we expect to know in order to enter this area as either authors publishing or peer reviewers whose names will be quite known as peer reviewers at one point in your career. So, the type of peer review policy on anonymity is important to be published. I mean, do journals actually publish the process? Do they publish their policies? Do they publish their criteria? The number of reviewers typically involved, the process itself, whether it's 1, 2, or 4, the duration of the review process, of course. Among these issues, some journals lately actually have this on their websites, and it is quite clear how long will it take. And commitment to this also is part of the profession of being in this area of publication. The protocol a reviewer is expected to follow, and of course, most important, the criteria for publication. Rejection rates to show the rigor, how rigorous it is, the journal, and statement on conflict of interest should be part of the policy. Why would this be important? How would it be beneficial? It should be beneficial for both parties and for readers as well, because it shows the level of the journal. This transparency benefits the readers, the authors, the reviewers, and the editors alike who are going to take the decision for the publication. The readers would know the rigor of the review process and would help in judging the standard of the articles within the journal. The authors will be able to select where to submit, and the reviewers will have a clearer idea of what is expected of them if this level of transparency is clear, and the editors will see a greater number of submissions because everything will be transparent. And On the other side, and Professor Emmanuel will help in bridging this gap, advice to the author. So, before submitting, we need to bridge the gap. The author should be very careful about the quality of the paper, and at least the formatting, the grammar and the spelling, the quality of the language is quite important. And of course, the journal scope and the submission checklist, which is what we are talking here about for transparency. Now, after submission, again, some would be resistant to go through the revisions. This is very important because you have to get the feedback with an open mind and respond to the other the advice of the reviewer, and revise the work and resubmit it for publication. I'm closing with this, and I'm calling on Professor Iman to share with us her experience as a peer reviewer, her expectations, and her advice as well to bridge this gap, and maybe about transparency as well. Professor.
So it ends up working at night because you cannot start doing this during the daytime with all our duties, and yet you do it because you are building yourself. As a lecturer or as a teacher or as a PI for research, you always like to be mentoring youngers who are working with you. You would like always to be giving, having something to say, having something more to show and to tell. And you cannot assure to have this unless you are really doing very hard work. So you are forced to read, you are forced to go through a current state of art in your field. Maybe in scientific areas that's not an easy job, because no one, whoever he is, can grasp all topics and all themes, but still they belong to your area and you are asked to review it. And then you have to go to search, and actually usually journals would give you a link to Elsevier or Scopus where you can search the most recent articles with the keywords on this topic, so you can know how far is this author from the current state of art. Is it something new? Is it something old? Is it something copied? Is it the same or what? So here you are really studying, you are doing your work, but under pressure, which is good, because in engineering we have an idea that you have to learn. One of the ILOs of engineering is work under stress and pressure. This is something that you have to do. So actually it's good for you. So if you have this opportunity, I mean, you will be forced to do it. No one is forcing you, but you are forcing yourself. As for the other side of the story, which are the youngers who are mentored or reviewed, their work is reviewed, you will think that you are waiting, like praying to God that something is going to happen to you, but it's not that way. Actually, I have seen youngers who were at the beginning very frustrated and upset with the comments of the reviewers, and then later on when they become mature and develop, they will be happy. Sometimes you feel happy with whatever comments are given to you, and sometimes even I have seen currently a young one of our junior staff, she has been asked to do some more experimental work, and she happily went to the lab and she stayed at night to complete an experiment which she has been asked to add some more work. So I mean, it's both sides win-win situation. If you accept this job, academic life as your job and as your career, you have to accept whatever comes with it. Another thing that, I'm not going to focus on basics as much as sharing my experience, as Professor Shadia has highlighted. Before Professor Shadia called me, I just had an invitation, something saying from Springer that this is the week of peer review, and they have asked me to attend some tutorials free. So I just kept them aside because I was busy at that time, and I thought I will spend one night watching these tutorials. And Dr. Shadia called me for this event. Actually, this is what I did. I spent one night watching the tutorials. They are very good and very interesting. And actually, the PDF, Dr. Rania, I think she has access. She knows this site, and I have allowed myself to use their PDF because I'm giving them the credit for the work. I mean, that's what they have Springer for Life. They have announced this, and I think Dr. Yahya as well has distributed this mail. They are very good tutorials, and you have a website, a quiz at the end, and you can go through this quiz for 5 different topics. One of them is research writing, which is important for the youngsters, for the junior staff, and the other is on peer review, which is good for, I mean, my age or older staff. And actually, don't worry, because I have been through the quiz, and I have got a varying level between 65 and 75%. And actually, I know the reason, because I'm a little bit very kind, motherly feeling on my review. I go through the language, I go through advising, I go through giving, showing a lot of things that I don't need to do. Because in our field, we don't have to go through correcting the English language. We just have to return it back and say it's okay, you take it back, and you go and for the common sentence or statement, go to a native speaker. And actually, when I find that there are minor comments, I would do it myself. But when I find that there are terrible comments, I mean, that would have really stopped me from understanding the scientific merit, then I will ask the editor for sending it back to the author for rewriting. So, and actually, when I went through the questions, I know that I have some of my students. We do peer review in Egypt not for journals as much as for projects, and I have heard from some people from centers, research centers, and telling me that we know your review because you give us some comments which are very motherly, and you tell us what to do and which papers should we consult and what to do. So actually, this is something that maybe when we are in a small community, people will get to know you, yeah, by the type of your comments and how you handle issues. But usually on international journals, I mean, it will be very, it's usually not the double blind, but it's the single blind, where I know the author, but the author doesn't know me, and sometimes they ask, do you mind, the author knows you, and I would just say, I mean, there's someone from Iran, Turkey, or whatever, I wouldn't mind if he knows me. So actually, I was invited for a PhD thesis in Australia to mentor or to review, evaluate the thesis, because I have reviewed their paper. And I think, I don't know if the supervisor has I don't know why, they ended up asking me to evaluate the thesis for the student who has applied, who has made this publication. Actually, he made 5 publications out of his PhD thesis. So we just want to say that, I mean, this is very important for both sides. Usually, I mean, maybe this is important for the young candidates to know how is the work peer reviewed. We start by the abstract. Usually, as Professor Shadi has mentioned, most of the journals would give us some specific questions to answer. So you are guided through your review, and especially that we know that the most important things is that the introduction, for example, should give a clear background, definitions and background for the topic, as well as the current state of art. The experimental methodology should explain details, the equipment, I mean, everything relating to the reliability and repeatability of the results. And some journals ask for the make of the equipment and which company and where is it allocated. As for the discussion, I mean, we don't argue what you say as much as it's evidence-based. It has to be evidence-based, and we open, and we maybe have a dispute, we agree or disagree, and then this is a discussion. Figures and tables should be fitting to the size and useful. I mean, it's not recommended, or you should not put data once in a table and another time the same data in a figure. So everything should have its own function, or I mean, importance, or significance. So usually these are the things that are looked for, and usually we would have 2 boxes. One box is for the editor, and this is only to the editor, and the other is for the author. And we address the author, giving him in details, I mean, what we are asking, what we are debating, what we are arguing with. And then to the editor, you may say some comments about the novelty, the originality. If this work is, you have any comments, any reservations, about the work, that this is given in the editor section. So maybe sometimes, or not sometimes, many times, it's important to know how are we assessed, what are the criteria versus against which we are going to be benchmarked or assessed. This is very important because then you peer review yourself. Actually, many of us who have completed their PhD abroad, they know that there is a peer review process among colleagues. I mean, usually among classmates, we review each other's thesis before submitting it to the supervisor. I mean, even if it's not my area, it's good, because then I will look critical at reviewing this thesis. Okay. As I have said, a number of things maybe these are a little bit related to scientific issues dealing with the experimental work. I'm not going to spend much time on it, but maybe here the analysis, the statistics are important, and actually they advise that we should have, I mean, usually one should have an idea about statistical analysis, because I think this is relevant to humanities and arts, because in many of your cases you have to analyze data in order to come up with conclusions. This is your evidence, as much as doing experiments in our work. The most difficult part at the end is writing the review report, and luckily enough that's not very difficult nowadays, because many of the journals will guide you question by question, point by point, and usually I would copy the questions, put them on a paper and answer below each one, and then take it copy paste again onto the journal's site. Here, when we talk about sharing experience, actually here there are some things that are just like the other side of the story. For example, peer review at the end of the day, it's a human-based activity. And any human-based activity is surely human-based result. And there is no assurance whatsoever that this is going to be an automated, repeated, exactly the same process. So no one can be sure that there is something which is called 100% good for an evaluation. Sometimes there are some people who will just give a reject, and you feel very unhappy and very frustrated. And you think, why did he reject my work? And especially when you find that similar work has been accepted and published in another journal because there is another reviewer who is a little bit more understanding about this area. So actually this is things of life that we have to live with, like playing football, when you lose because the referee was not actually very fair. So this is the only thing you have to just pick up yourself and start looking for another journal. And this is something that we see every day, that your work is refused or rejected in one journal, and maybe even worse and less and simpler work is accepted in another journal, and you cannot understand the reason. Because we have to understand this is a human-based idea. Anything which is not mechanized or automated, at the end of the day, it has to be subject to views, personal feelings, ideas, concepts, background, everything. So this is really a very big problem. And not even, I mean, I know in our area, like we say about football, the referee is supporting the other team. We have the same feelings, because sometimes we feel that, okay, because we have sent this from an Arab country or from Egypt, they are not treating us the same way as from others. And actually, as a reviewer, I would assure this, because I receive a lot of very badly written English language paper manuscripts, and they are allowed to be sent to me, whereas in many cases, the first thing they ask for any Egyptian reviewer is go for a native speaker. So, I mean, and then you wonder, I mean, why is that? So this is something we see by our eyes, and I know reviewers would notice this. So feelings, we cannot deny your feelings. We cannot deny feelings of not being treated fairly from all people. But fortunately enough, that this is not only our feelings. Even other, authors from England, America, Europe, everywhere, they have the same feelings, and this is what I have discovered. And I have been reading a book on a theory which has been proposed recently for explaining something in our field in the material. And the one who was writing this article has shown the first one to propose this theory some time ago, and the rejections coming from the reviewers. And how come after 20 years it has been found that this theory is the right theory? And he had screenshotted and put it for people to see. So sometimes a rejection, that's what they tell us, that very high class work may be rejected and maybe it will be accepted after years when people start realizing. So everyone is debating about who is reviewing, why is he reviewing, why is this institute given more credit in his review. So don't worry if you feel like this, other people feel like this as well. And actually for me it was interesting to find that these are questions put on the website of Springer. So for example, this statement here, there are no peers available to review recent original discoveries. Actually, it's a point of view. If they knew about it, it would not be a new discovery. So experimentation is the only way to build a peer, and the only true teacher. Nature itself is continually experimenting. So actually, it's a point of view. Actually, really, if I found something new, who would judge if this is new or not? So, but this is life. This is one of the things that we have just to live with. You just keep trying, and if you fail to get your work accepted somewhere, just go to another place and try to keep on trying. Apart from frustration and difficulties and let's say long hours consumed in this job, it's an interesting job because it makes us feel alive. And I always say that anyone who has been used to work in a university would have never, even if you get much higher salaries or whatever, you will not give up what you have been used to. We have a dynamic, changing environment where every day we see something new, completely different from doing the same job every day and every hour. So apart from this, I'm not going to keep you longer than that. I will just ask my Dr. Shadia to give some ideas about my experience. And I think Dr. Shadia may invite us for a discussion or something. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Iman. And I forgot to tell you that when I called Professor Iman, inviting her to participate in this seminar, she was just looking for a pen to write a rejection or acceptance of a paper, and she said, and it was late in the day, and she was working on peer reviewing one of the articles that I believe was going to be rejected, right? So thank you very much, Professor Iman, and I'd like, before we proceed, to thank Dr. Rania Khalil, the research coordinator of the Faculty of Arts and Humanities, for taking the initiative and organizing this event. It's our first seminar of the Faculty of Arts and Humanities. So thank you very much, Dr. Rania. I would open a very brief discussion about whether transparency, whether people here, our colleagues here, the junior staff have met any difficulties with publishing, and I hope that this session would encourage you to benefit from the supportive policy that the university here offers for publishing, as Professor Yahya here introduced, and again with the encouraging other side of the story of the peer reviewers here to go ahead and start publishing, because this is very important for each and everyone. Have you met any issues that you would like to discuss regarding transparency of the procedure? It's a debatable issue whether you would like more transparency or whether to just write in the dark, and then when it's published, that's when you know that it has been accepted. The procedure itself, the issue of the procedure itself, whether it is clearly announced in the journals. Whether we as peers have been discussing it. Have you attended a seminar about peer review before? Has it been in discussion?
I always get a rejection, always do, because I guess I'm not known as a researcher as of yet, but I get it in a very kind way. Like, I think the editor or the reviewer, feels really sorry for rejecting my paper, and they always explain that, this is a wonderful paper and we really hope that you keep submitting, but no, thank you. And I don't know why that happens.
And is there clarity about how to improve it, a reason
It's
for
a rejection.
rejection? That's what I mean. I can understand why you would be frustrated, because how will you develop? How will you improve? That's why we said it should be constructive. Even the rejection should at least pave the way, open up what exactly. How would you develop?
Yeah, they actually say it's a very good paper, but we're not going to publish it.
It's not what it is.
So I honestly don't know.
That's very strange. I mean, the editor should not tell that reviewer. I mean, if I reject your paper, I should write a comment. Why it was rejected? In the court of law, they say, he's innocent or guilty because, you cannot. So the editor-in-chief has a responsibility here. To take this.
And the type of journal.
They genuinely say it's a good paper. I mean, one editor said that it's going to take up too much space on journals. So I was wondering, why would a reviewer reject a paper that they actually, like?
It's a very interesting area, psychology. Justina is in the field of psychology. All right, so thank you for sharing your experience. Justina, and what you plan to do? Give up publishing? Exactly.
But then when journals ask for a lot of money, then I'm skeptical about the journal itself. So I was accepted in one journal, but I didn't want to publish with them because they gave me a lot of money.
Yeah.
For money to publish.
Yes.
First, I appreciate this point because for me this is something new. But I want to ask about the steps if I'd like to work like a peer reviewer, by the way. What about with the main journals I can apply, for example, via internet, just to tell me exactly where to apply and how to be something like this? Because it happened to me at the AEC before.
Would you like to go over there and talk so we can see?
Okay, first I'd like to thank you so much for this, but I need to ask, I think many of them, we need to know exactly the steps if I'd like to apply to work like a peer reviewer, by the way. Is it just for the language or the staff or the quality of writing itself? I need to know some more details about this. Again, because at the AEC before I had my master's and they just tell me that, hey, we made the peer observation or the peer reviewing, but I don't know exactly who did it. Okay, and I got just acceptance from the AEC and no more. But I need just more details about this, especially for the place they can apply to.
That is, I believe, from one journal.
Which field is the literature?
Yes.
No, I'm not sure about literature.
Yes.
But maybe in engineering, usually the journal invites people who have already published in this area. But I'm not sure about literature.
Yes.
But recently we have, I think maybe we have all received this thing 2 days ago about for the week of peer review from something called Publins, I think, yeah, and I think they ask people who want to work in this to submit their CVs. Maybe, what was it saying? Only. Okay. Yeah. For the viewers, but not for you.
They would approach you if you have published with them according to the quality of your paper, or maybe you have worked with someone who would recommend you, but you don't apply. And here we're in the process of having a database for comments and peer review reports of evaluation for further transparency, because again this has not been quite clearly published. Okay, Dr. Please.
I have an experience with publishing, but I don't get the idea, with literature particularly. The thing is that I got this reply. You need to include more of critics in your paper. And they left aside everything related to theory, application of that theory, which was really new, and I didn't get it. So a rejection because of including the critics, which is something.
A statement, just one statement.
That's it. It's not about review of literature. When I talked with other colleagues in the field, they said, actually, I'm very interested in philosophy, and this is why they said they are not familiar with the field you are dealing with, since you are in the literature field. So mixing both things was not kind of, yeah.
Maybe it's a matter of
yeah.
specialization of the
that was something
there is really an issue there of transparency and constructive feedback.
I have experience in peer reviewing. Well, what happens is I receive an email from journals or from people that I have met in a conference, and they ask me to peer review an article. And when I'm asked to peer review an article, the journal itself sends me the criteria. I mean, there's usually criteria and descriptors that I have to check while I'm peer reviewing. And then I send my comments, and that's it. Okay.
Thank you. Yes, so this would be good practice.
We have a question here.
Yes.
What I understood was that, I'm going to take the microphone there. If you would like to publish and you send your paper to a journal, they send it to a reviewer and he just recommends, right? He does not decide on whether he's going to reject the paper or not. Yes, I'm asking.
No, the initial evaluation is by the editor, whether it's relevant to the journal, whether the length is okay, whether there's a major issue with the paper in formatting or what. This is the editor.
Yes.
But once the editor finds that it could be published in the journal, he or she would send it to the reviewer. The reviewer would have the content evaluation of the paper.
Okay.
Not the editor, not the initial one.
Yes.
It's stage 2, it's where the reviewer gets the paper, the specialized, the expert would read the paper and then give the feedback, and that's what we were discussing, which type of feedback, is it just a rejection or an acceptance?
And is it possible that I would have 2 reviewers review the same work at the same time?
But whether the journal actually announces the actual policy and the procedure or not, this is what we were talking about. It varies from one journal to the other, from one discipline to the other.
So actually I'm from a very different background from the majority here, so I'm science background. So, but I think the procedure is actually the same. And it depends not in a specific journal, but on a specific publisher. So the publisher has usually a lot of journals under different specialties, but the procedure is the same, or the rules are the same. And regarding the transparency, I think usually not I think actually, because I have done this several times, and as a reviewer, it's very clear and very direct. So you have different links to, or different things to fill, basically. So criteria, yes, and this is very transparent because you can choose if these comments are only for the editor or for the author. And if, as a reviewer, I choose my comments to go to the author, they will go to the author, they will go to you, and then you will see as a reviewer, what did I write? Why did I reject, or why did I accept? Or if I accept, but for example, I recommend you do this and this and that. And the comments for the editor, that I say, okay, this is good for publication, but not without correcting this or this, or something else needs to be done, for example, or no, this cannot be accepted at all. And sometimes if you don't get a comment from the reviewer, perhaps this is because the reviewer did not want to share with you his comments or her comments, and he sent it only to the editor. And in this case, the editor can decide, or has to decide, if he can show you his comments or not. For example, I have one experience I would like to share, that I got once a paper to review from China, and the authors there actually copied and pasted from their previous articles. So they published before in a very good journal, and seems like they wanted to republish it again, so in another unknown journal, not as good as the previous one. So he took some figures and some text, and he put it. And by chance, because I wanted just to see who was this author, what did they do before, I found that they actually published it. So I wrote only to the editor, I wrote to the author that you have published this before, this is not accepted. But then I clarified to the editor that this is misleading, this should not publish in your journal at all. So perhaps this kind of comment is that you as an author or as a researcher, you don't get sometimes. And regarding also the that you get rejected sometimes because it's very long, or that it's not relevant. I think you need to first read a lot of articles in your field and see where they are published, and that's why you choose. But also recently there are a lot of journals that they don't belong to any publishers. We get a lot of actually advertisement about that, and they say, we have impact factor of 3 point blah blah blah. We have impact factor of 5, and in fact they don't have anything. And if you go to the website, it's only one page. So please be careful about that, because these are not really, they don't belong to any publisher, and they don't have really an impact factor, and you cannot track them. And many of them are actually just they can make money, because also probably they do money. So this is actually an important issue right now in publishing and in peer review as well.
Thank you very much. And I believe it's the editor who compiles, if it's more than one reviewer, the editor compiles the feedback and selects what, not everything is written by the reviewer, could be again shared with the author sometimes, but some.
If you are a reviewer and you have two boxes, comments to the editor and comments to the author. If you write something to the editor, he or she will never share it with the author.
Yes.
They will not volunteer to do that, because you can write things confidentially, criticizing harshly or praising greatly. You don't want the author to see this, but you want the author to see the comments that will help him modify the paper if needed, or say this is great and things.
Thank you very much. Yes. Last one.
Well, I'm interested to know how to judge a journal, because you raised an pretty important issue. I may get, where to publish, yes, and to make sure that I stand on, good ground.
The field, of course, the field, and then
And the
rank, the quality, the rank of the publisher itself, actually. We usually refer to the publisher. Big publishers usually have big, good papers, even if their impact factor is not as high, but it is the publisher is the more important. So you look, for example, Elsevier, Wiley, ACS, APS, all these big known publishers. I'm sorry, I don't know in the field of humanities what are the famous publishers, but I say, for example, yes. And then after that, you look at the journal which is related to your field, and then what is the impact factor. The impact factor, of course, tells a lot that a lot of people are publishing, and it gets good citation. You can see the articles or the journals that gets a lot of citations. But the first thing wouldn't be that. The first thing is your field. What is your field? What are you working on? And this is by reading a lot of research related to your work, you will find out easily what are the journals that publish more in your field. And then from that you go on to the, because if you have a very good work, you think this can be published in a very good journal, then you go for the high impact journal first to try. And then if it's rejected, you go to another one.
If I'd like to share anything, I would first have some words of comfort to you about the comments you had, because I think nowadays the editor-in-chief has the power to just not consider any review complete unless they fill out the forms, they provide the necessary comments. As Dr. Nagwa was saying, we get templates to do that, and we get the chance to do track changes and comments on text itself. So they should have a very good reason to sway the decision one way or another. So it's not just up to their own mood or anything like yes.
With regards to yes, to your question, won't it be a good idea to search under the journals recognized by Scopus and Thomson Reuters, as Professor Yahya mentioned? Yani you can go to Scopus or Thomson Reuters and in your field check which journals are and would be accredited by Scopus and Thomson Reuters, and these are the ones that you choose from. Celeste.
Thank you very much. I hope that this seminar would have fruitful results, that you would be encouraged to start by being the authors and then you will be the peer reviewers. That's the road to being a peer reviewer. And we'll do two things before you go. One of them is we'd like to have a photo, all of us, because as I told you at the beginning, this is shared. And I'd like to have all the participants having a photo together with our speakers, Professor Yahya and Professor Iman. Second is that, again, thank you, Dr. Rania. She prepared a handout that you would take with you for frequently asked questions and tips for peer review. Okay, thank you again. So please, we'll take one.